welcome. So today I'm going to be showing you how I painted this. I didn't use any line work in the final, but here I'm starting with some guidelines for this reference. Just drawing those right over and copying and pasting them onto my workspace. And then using those guidelines, I start just an underdrawing, which I use then to create my silhouette layer, which I will be painting everything on top of. I just clean up the edges a little bit, double check all my guidelines, add a little bit of texture, and now I start filling in the hat. And I actually changed this later, I totally got rid of that layer. But here I am just adding in some highlights. You can see I'm staying really zoomed out to make sure I don't get too lost in the details. Just doing big shapes first, highlights and shadows. Adding all that stuff in, working on the shirt, and I go back to the hat, and I think at this point I have not yet merged my layers. My highlights and shadows are still on their own layers, but I will be merging all of that here in a minute. I start adding in just some shapes for the eyes, and double checking my guidelines again, my underdrawing, and I'm just finishing adding in my base 3 tones for the whole figure before I kind of get more into the details as I am here now. So now I've zoomed in on the face and I am focusing entirely on that, getting all the shadows and the highlights in the right spot, really sculpting and rendering this out, working on the lips a little bit, double checking with the other reference to see how it's progressing. I really had a fun time working on the eyes and like the cheeks with this. And as I said, this is lineless in the final. So this is all done with shapes and value rather than lines. And it's my first time working like this in a while, digitally at least. So I had a lot of fun with that too. Now I'm just doing some finishing touches on the face. Most of that stuff is pretty much done for the level of completion I'm looking for here. So just some little detail-y stuff like the pupils and the bags under the eyes and a little mole by his cheek and all of that stuff. Adding in eyebrows and all of that. And now I'm going back to working on the shirt. And because I am working on this shirt, which is less refined already, I'm zooming out and kind of referencing the other side, the reference, and going back and kind of working zoomed out to not get too lost in the details yet. I changed my background just to have a better reference between the two, and now I am working on the other side of the shirt. So once again, focusing on base shapes first, and then getting more and more detailed as the level of completion increases. Messed around with some gradient mapping there, that's always fun, just to see how it was really progressing and what it might look like with color. Pulling in the collar and working on the neck, you might have noticed that I haven't done a lot of the facial hair yet. I'm focusing on the hat now, but the facial hair will come in later. I had a pretty hard time getting the texturing right for the hat, so I messed around with a bunch of different brushes, and you can see me doing that here, trying to find something that feels right. I think I ended up going with a, you might be able to see it, it's a floral brush. It has like leaves and things, and I'm just using that because I feel like it had some nice shapes, and I messed around with my blending modes to get all of that just right. And now I'm working on the hair and the facial hair. And there's a brush that I like to use for grass and hair and stuff like that. So I just started with darker shapes and then layered the light shapes on top of that to kind of give an illusion of depth. And this is a really nice way to add depth without having lines. And here I started trying to mess around with a background. There's this pattern, this guy's from Twin Peaks, and this pattern shows up often in Twin Peaks, but I ended up scrapping this after working, I don't know, maybe for 20 minutes on that. So yeah, I scrapped that and just went with a vignette instead, and there we go, it's done. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you watch the next one.